prime thing is you have to win.
There you go. There you go. That's what I'm talking about. Hey, Mark, settle down a little bit.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Just Win podcast. I'm Ted Nguyen. That's my co-host, Marshall Newhouse. And we are going to preview the Raiders game against the Titans this week. The vibes with the Raiders are just not good right now. They cut Jermaine Pratt, and he signs with the Colts, the team that the Raiders just played. And reportedly 4 teams are interested in him. He was the Raiders' best coverage linebacker, so something weird was going on there, and I'm sure we'll find out the story eventually. But definitely not something that you would find just normally happens with a normal team. You have any takes on what potentially happened, or have you seen a situation like this before?
Yeah, listen, it's just ultimately, yeah, I don't have all the gossip or anything, but it just speaks to. I understand when new regimes come in, there's a lot of turnover because they're trying to get their kind of guys in, quote unquote, their kind of guys, whether that's scheme fit or attitude or what have you. So we don't know exactly if Pratt didn't fit either of those categories. You heard murmurs about headbutting about, how they're going about preparing and how they're going about, game day operations. And he's a veteran guy, I imagine, who, me having been a veteran guy signing to teams later in my career, you're trying to balance the experience you have, and I knew how to win. I've won everywhere I've been, and then like also assimilating and what that looks like. And so it feels like now, we had the Jackson Powers Johnson deal ongoing, I guess, and this it feels like there's friction between the locker room and the staff. It might not be as widespread as it feels, but it definitely feels different. And maybe this is just going to take some time for Pete to establish the way he wants things run. But you let go of a guy who's talented, and the demand and the appeal for him is immediate. You start to wonder, like, could he have helped us? Was this thing that was the reason they let him go so far gone? And why, if so, why is it so far gone? So a lot of questions to be asked. These are the kind of questions that stack up when you're not winning. I've seen the craziest personnel decisions and guys squabbling behind the scenes, but you're beating teams' heads in, and it doesn't matter because we're just winning and we're going. That covers up a lot of sins. But when you're 1-4, it's just you're looking for some kind of light, some kind of thing to get you going. This is not the kind of news you want to hear.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, if they won the game against the Bears, they would be 2-3 right now, and they would have a chance to be 3-3 if they beat the Titans, who are a winnable team. But I shouldn't say winnable when the Raiders are playing the way they are now.
Right.
So it's just crazy what little things could just affect your season, like a block kick or just missing a block or stuff like that. All of it just kind of adds up.
Yep.
But the Raiders are playing bad right now. The vibes, I mean, it's toxic right now for Geno Smith, looking at Twitter and seeing how the fans are reacting. And again, I was a guy that liked Geno Smith a lot, and I believed in him coming into this season. And the pushback for Geno Smith seemed to come from the time that he played with the Jets, and he was a very bad quarterback for the Jets, but he was a completely different quarterback with the Seahawks. And what he's doing now doesn't change what he was with the Seahawks, but it's kind of crazy the drop off that has happened from that Geno Smith into the Geno Smith that we're seeing now. He was legitimately one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league when he was playing for the Seahawks. He was 4th in completion percentage over expected during his time with Seattle. His off-target rate was only 6.9, which was among the lowest in the league, and it jumped up to 9.2%, almost a 30% increase in off-target percentage, which was, I think, the strangest regression as far as looking at Geno Smith is just how his accuracy has been affected. And as far as the turnovers, he had 15 interceptions in 2024, but a lot of it was unlucky, tip passes, things like that. And we know that because his turnover worthy play percentage was 2.6%. That means he was only putting the ball in harm's way 2.6% of the time, and he got unlucky in those times, and it became interceptions. But 2.6% ranks in the bottom of the league. He was 26 in turnover worthy percentage, and it doubled this year. Is at 5.2%, which is 36 worse in the league. So he is putting the ball in harm's way. The first interception against the Colts was unlucky. That second one, Dante Thornton ran a really crappy route, but that ball should not have been thrown based on the coverage. So he needs to play better, bottom line. And that's my final defense of Geno Smith until he plays better. But I just don't like that people are taking the way that he's playing now and just saying, "Oh, we told you so." This was Geno Smith the entire time in Seattle. And in Seattle, he actually faced the most quick pressures under 2.5 seconds of any quarterback in the league during that time. He had two offensive coordinators that were really bad, and we know that now because they're fired and can't find a job. So he dealt with all those things, had those good stats, and that's why I was encouraged by him coming to the Raiders, and hopefully the Raiders were going to surround him with more competency, but that just hasn't happened.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Raiders personnel and you like, where's the DK Metcalf? Where,
Yeah.
Tyler Lockett was at the towards the end of his career, but he's a reliable target. He's always where you need him to be. Where is that guy? And so as with most things when we're evaluating players, I get the emotional part of immediately wanting to bench him. I talked about he's throwing too many steps. You got to think about a change, but ultimately, we are all judged by context too. If we're doing this fair, if we're doing this consistently, we're judged by context, and the context is he doesn't have guys who can get open. He is feeling the pressure to force the ball downfield, which is I think a decision mode that he has to get out of until things change, because Brock Bowers is now out extended time, and you're not getting a receiver who's just going to change the paradigm of this core. So he's got to shift his mindset. And because a lot of these balls, 8 out of his 9 interceptions are vertical throws. And so, some are where he's getting tricked in zone, but a lot of times he's trying to squeeze it in a spot where there's just not room. But I believe he's feeling the pressure, both literally from protection and figuratively from realizing I don't have a lot to work with. But to me, that's the next thing is to not force it. Maybe if he's a veteran guy, you go through the forcing it phase and then it doesn't work. And then you change again. And I think the change, and we'll talk about later, needs to be getting the running back gently involved in the passing game. Sometimes that means the boring play of a check down. That is okay. There are so many coordinators, quarterback coaches who will tell you, I would rather you check the ball down and we're in 2nd and 8 than you force the ball and we turn the ball over quickly after your defense has got off the field. We give them a short field. Like, it seems obvious, but I think people forget that like turnovers are so devastating that having this many is not even allowing the team in all 3 phases, even though they're all equally in their moments have being bad, playing poorly. It doesn't even give you a chance, and so I hope that he and Chip Kelly adjust to what is there now. That is a reality check that some people just have too much pride and they don't want to see what's there, but that is what's there right now. We've talked about replacing the Thornton reps with Jack Best reps. I think that seems to be coming, and so you'll have a bigger physical target underneath that you hope you're on a better page with, a better rapport as far as where the ball's supposed to go. If he's sitting down in zones or if you can trust him to beat one-on-one coverage. But there has to be a legitimate adjustment to how you're attacking defenses. And I think it's funny that it feels like both teams moving forward are each other's maybe get right games. It's just not a good sign. But this is a Tennessee secondary that is played poorly, and a run defense overall that can be had. So the Raiders have an opportunity to put one foot in front of the other and step into this new reality that things are, the reality that Brock Bowers is out, the reality that Colton Miller is out, and the reality that you just don't have a stud receiver as of yet. And so adjust accordingly.
Yeah, and before we get into the Titans game, let's talk about our all 22 review of the last game. We won't take too much time on this because it was a really bad game, but it's important to look back. Again, we talked about this, but it was probably Chip Kelly's best game plan as far as his time in NFL involving Ashton Genty uh, in the passing game, just kind of peppering them underneath. They were able to get some runs too. There were still a couple of kind of like WTF plays, kind of like that boot in when they got into the red zone when they probably could have ran the ball in that situation, and I just
Enough.
didn't like the little fake pitch.
Yeah, it didn't sell anything. So
Yeah, and there were some receivers open, and Geno missed them. I think part of it is just like his mindset right now. It's just kind of all over the place. So it was an encouraging sign for Chip Kelly. There was an ESPN report. I think Dan Grisano or something said people around the league are kind of looking at Chip Kelly and he's not giving the Raiders an advantage or working or creating game plans based on the personnel. Um, so, there's some pressure on him, but I thought, the game plan initially was one of his better game plans, or if not his best game plan. So we hope to see that continue. We talked about Jack Besh. He was more involved and not just as a guy that could be a more physical receiver than Thornton, but he was more involved in a run game as far as making different types of blocks. He could have done a little bit of a better job, but overall, pretty good for his first game as far as really getting involved in the run game. So I want to see that increase a little bit more. And defensively, they were just playing too soft, man. Like we know Daniel Jones is going to take those underneath routes and he's going to be patient. He's not going to, make a mistake and push the ball deep when it's not there. But he just played way too soft and he just gave up way too much underneath. Doesn't allow the pass rush to do anything. Darren Porter was okay. There was times where he just didn't understand his leverage a little bit, and they didn't really pick on him in the game, but they started to a little bit when they got into the red zone later in the game. So that's something to watch out for.
yeah, I think upon study, it just feels like there's got to be an uptick in the physicality, and I feel like I've mentioned that multiple times. So maybe that's just an issue. But we were talked about the bump up when JPJ came back, and that's been pretty consistent. But Jordan Meredith has really got to step up. He looks at times lost out there, both from like pointing out pass protections, which I've always wondered about the mechanic from team to team because I've been on teams when I was with the Packers. We would set the center would set the original protection. Aaron would adjust. In other places where, when I was with the Raiders, Derek trusted Rodney for the most part to set the protection. And as long as Derek knew where we were going, he knew where his hots were, we're good to go. In other places, it's just all different. But with a guy who lacks the experience in Jordan Meredith, do you trust him at all times to set it? And then are you putting that burden on Geno to then adjust to where he needs to go? There's um, a red zone protection there that was kind of a quick flash fake, and the linebacker comes screaming off the edge, and it looked like but Meredith, JBJ, and Glaze were all on different pages. And at the end of the day, you want to protect inside out. So A gap, then B gap, then C gap, and then you let the running back clean anything else up off the edge. But it just felt like guys were not on the same page. So both from a communication standpoint and then multiple run plays where Meredith is not understanding the time it takes to engage in the beginning of a double team, a combo block. And sometimes you got to leave it early. Sometimes you got to shove it, knock it over onto your guard. Sometimes you got to just hit him and climb. A lot of back doors and run throughs by the linebackers that he was late on. And I understand they're more athletic, but to a certain extent, you don't even have to. It doesn't have to be a kill shot, but you got to get a piece of guys. And that is, you know, we've talked about earlier this season. Genty having to deal with tacklers in the backfield before he gets to the last scrimmage. That has improved, but I think it starts with the center because he's involved in so many of the initial run blocks. And that's going to be even more crucial going against a guy like Jeffrey Simmons this week, where you've got to account for him at all times. I mean, he had that one highlight play where it looked like he both timed the snap perfectly, the center went the wrong way, and the Bears almost had just a catastrophe. Was it the Bears? I think it was the Bears. And, that's just kind of stuff that can't happen. So I'm looking for him to adjust his play. people were calling for JPJ to be at center. Pete has made it clear that that's not what he wants. I understand the reasoning just from a physicality standpoint, from a guard at guard. And so that means Jordan Meredith has got to show up because I don't know if they have another option right now. And so, it takes other guys helping him too, but he's got to do his job and get the guys where they need to be and then show up with a little physicality. The center starts so much inside with these combination blocks and with the protection.
Yeah, and do you think that it's I mean, he had one of his better games against the Bears, and then you have this kind of down game against the Colts. Do you think it's a thing where, if he gets more experience there, then he can kind of learn the timing of these things and learning how to set protections because it's something he's never done in his career before?
Yeah, I mean that takes a while. It's a whole different mental gymnastics at center because you also got to get the snap off. I understand that. Um, and I've noticed, the Raiders when they're on the road, when it's a hostile environment, which Allegiant sometimes turns into, well, that's a whole nother story. But Meredith has his head up. So I've been with centers who had their head between their legs, and they are fully reliant on the guards, either the right or the left guard, being his eyes and setting stuff for him while he's looking and waiting for the QB to set his foot. But Meredith's head's up most of the time, and so I don't know what he's missing sometimes, and if it's just a lot, it's like drinking out of a fire hose. But yeah, that comes with reps, that comes with opportunity. But I'd like them to help him with guards a little bit more. And then listen, the Bears game was a solid game for him, and it looked like he was going to where he needed to go. I don't know if they simplified, the Genty explosive run against Chicago was just a zone. It was just a simple weak side zone, and maybe they need more just simple things like that to start, and then you get momentum as the game goes on. So you got good play callers understand that, but ultimately the center quarterback exchange starts everything, and he's got to be dialed in. So hopefully he takes another step up. Again, this is a coming Titans defensive front, even with Jeffrey Simmons, that can be had. They've allowed over 129 rushing yards a game. So I think this will be a game where there could be some momentum with the low line and with Genty.
Yeah, and speaking of that, let's get into the game. What are we looking for when the Raiders have the ball against this Titans defense?
Well, obviously, Geno, we hope his mindset has kind of adjusted, adapted. But this is also a defensive secondary that is 25th, I believe, in coverage against passes that are 10 plus yards, which Geno likes to do. We'll see if they continue that, just because if guys aren't getting open, it's a forced ball. But if you got opportunities to go deep with Trey Tucker, then you take them, and Geno likes those passes. And L'Jarius Sneed and company struggle against those passes. So I look at that. I look at the inclusion of Jack Besh underneath medium routes. They'll play him at X. They'll play him on the outside. They'll play him on the inside. We'll see where he lines up. Just you lose Bowers, who's a bigger body. Besh is a more physical receiver, who replaces that production. And then the offensive line in Genty. This is a defensive front, like I said, that's allowed over 129 yards a game this season. And you got them at home. And so, again, is it a get right moment? Probably. But Genty is picking up steam, and so you want to continue that positive momentum and that positive energy because he's becoming the back that everyone thought. Whether you agreed with the placement of his drafting or not, he's the guy with the potential to really make this offense a juggernaut from a run threat standpoint because he is that good. But you've got to give him opportunities, and this is a week that can potentially do that.
Yeah, this Titans team, like you mentioned, have struggled against the run. They play a lot of two deep coverages, six in two deep percentage because their corners have been awful, and when they do play single high, you can get them deep. So they try to play too deep to just protect those corners. And when they play those two deep coverages, they've given a lot of receptions up to tight ends. The Texans had a pretty good game just passing the ball to Woody Marks out of the backfield. So if they do play those two deep coverages, Geno has to be patient and check the ball down. This would be a great game for Brock Bowers, but we don't know if he's playing yet. Like you mentioned, Jack Besh could replace some of those targets. Michael Mayer will get some of those targets, and this is a game to just keep Genty involved in the passing game. Run defense wise, they give up a lot of explosive runs, 10th explosive run rate, But the strength of their team is up front. Jeffrey Simmons is one of the best defensive tackles in the game. He's disruptive. Run defense has been a little off for him this year. Um, Cedric Gray is their linebacker, 33. He's a pretty good run defender as well. But once you get past that first level, they're not a good tackling team in the secondary. So it's up to the Raiders line to block them up front and get Genty some space so that he could get to the second level. Because if he does, he's going to have explosive runs like he did against the Chicago Bears. So I think this could be a big Genty game in the run game and in the passing game. Receivers wise, I mean, like Trey Tucker had a pretty good game against the Colts, and we saw what he could do on that when they tried to play a man. He just like outran his guy, and I forgot which Colts defender it was, but he couldn't even get a hand on him and fell down on the play. You would hope he could score on, but the safety did a good job of tackling him. So this could be a big Trey Tucker game again. If they wanted to get into those single coverages, Geno has to see that, make a check at the line of scrimmage or something and try to attack those corners. But if they're in those two deeps, be patient. Just check the ball down, and these guys could create after the catch.
Yeah, I mean, I like that approach. There's gonna be moments that you want to take advantage of their lack of tackling and holes in the coverage. And it's just gonna be a matter of Geno being patient because they're as poorly as they played so far. They just won in Arizona last week. They are doing this bend don't break thing just because they are also lacking in personnel, and so you forcing the balls is not going to help. But then making them over and over again rally and tackle underneath, it tests the defense that is struggling in that, and then things open up. So just be patient, taking what's there, and then choosing your moments. I think they'll have an opportunity to score some points this week for sure.
Yeah, and the run game, they were doing pretty decent job of bottling up the Cardinals' run game, even though they're without their top two backs, until they gave up a 71-yard run to DeMarcado, who fumbled the ball out of the end zone famously.
Yeah.
So NT does that. Make sure you hold on to the ball through the goal line. Don't give the ball.
It has nothing to do. Well, I mean, it had nothing directly to do with the Raiders, but Imari Mercado, go Frogs. He's a TCU guy, but made a boneheaded play. Broke a 75-yarder. Didn't get the ball across the plane. That seems like it's happening way more than any of us really think should be happening. But it's obvious that that's a mistake and that's a bad play. It's a dumb play, boneheaded play, whatever. But I want to talk about the sideline interaction that has now got Coach Gannon fined for $100,000. And the people that like immediately go to, man, this league is soft. And I'm like, there is a contract, not a written contract, but a contract between players and coaches. You scream at me all you want. You can chew me out, and justifiably so in that moment, but you do not put your hands on a player. And so what we're finding out is that glad that the Cardinals just took care of this quickly. I think they'll get over it. I don't think Amari is a sensitive guy who's going to take it personally, but like the optics of that cannot be allowed. And so as a player, I want people to understand it's not about players being soft. I promise you it's not that. If a player turns and swings on your head coach, what are we talking about here on the sideline? So I had to interrupt because there's been so much weird talk about it. So I'm like, it's very cut and dry. Play was a mistake, bad play. Do what you want from that point as far as verbal punishment, all that stuff. And then the minute you touch a guy, even with pads on the sideline, however you think it should have gone, he's in the wrong. I'm glad they took care of it quickly. So we can move on.
No, I agree. I mean, I when I heard about it, I thought maybe they are being soft, but when I saw the video, I was pretty shocked to see a grown man do that to another grown man, like in a professional environment. You just can't have that happen. But yeah, we'll move on. When the Titans have the ball, what are we watching out for?
Well, listen, Cam Ward has started at moments to look the part. I mean, the first three quarters of Arizona not good. That fourth quarter versus Arizona, even though they let them back in the game, he was making some throws, man, and that feels like his MO is you give him opportunity and he'll make some big boy throws. And so I'm looking at Cam Ward's development, especially against this defense. I really wish this defense would go from feels like stubbornly playing cover three to a more shell look, allowing, again, it's an adjustment to the personnel that you have and what you have on the field, but maybe not. And so he's going to take some matchups. There are matchups to be had on the Raiders secondary, and also I'm looking at J.C. Latham, their tackle coming back. We're pretty sure he's going to play. They had a really good game for this Tennessee offensive line last week. But also bringing a guy back off of injury, does that mess up their chemistry? But he's a physical specimen, man. He's a big dude. I think Max Crosby is a better finesse matchup, but Max Crosby not going to want to rush down the middle of this dude. So it'll be a good matchup if he gets out there. And then ultimately, this Vegas pass rush is bottom third in the league, even with Max Crosby being as disruptive as he is. He's only got 2 sacks, which doesn't tell the entire story. But this entire unit has not played well, has not gotten pressure, and so you let this offensive line unit gain confidence. You let Cam Moore continue to gain confidence, and he's the type of quarterback, a young guy still, who's going to make you pay. And so those are the things I'm looking for initially when Tennessee has the ball.
Yeah, I think the Raiders actually match up pretty well against this Titans offense because they like to run a lot of outside zone with Tony Pollard. The Raiders are pretty good at defending outside zone, and Cam Ward is a big game hunter. He wants to look downfield, and he's holding on to the ball, and he's not worried about those checkdowns whatsoever. So I think for the Raiders, playing soft coverage and taking away those deep plays is what they need to do. Don't worry about the checkdowns until he actually checks it down, then rally at the tackle. But he's just not doing that very often right now. Maybe he'll have to learn to do that as his career progresses. But at this time, he's just not looking for those checkdowns. Um, as far as the inside linebackers, like Devin White, man, he had a rough game against the Colts in coverage. So I expect them to try to recreate some plays where they test him in coverage with their tight ends. Tony Pollard's a good running back coming out of the backfield as well. But again, I don't know if they're going to check the ball down a ton, but they're probably going to run some crossers, check, and really test Devin White in coverage. And as far as they're going to pass coverage, they're going to try to get vertical. So as long as they stay disciplined and hold their shells, and if Devin White could play a little bit better and take away some of those deeper crossers, I think they should be fine against this Titans offense.
Yeah, I agree. I think that a point is noted. I mean, it looks at times Devin White, for as athletic he is, we saw linebackers like that as a liability because they were so twitchy and reactive, and that you can get them from side to side, and that feels like at times he's overreactive to either crossers or to play action and people running behind him. So he's definitely got to have more disciplined eyes and know what's behind him, and trust that he can make up ground even if he's more passive initially, and not overreacting, because teams are definitely going to take advantage of that.
Yeah. All right. So what is your main matchup that you're looking for in this game?
My main matchup is Arden Key on Stone Forsyth. We've had, Big Now Stone as a rough game to kind of be introduced, especially when you get down early. Again, we've talked about he's a big guy, but they offered him some help at times, and then at the times he didn't. He's not as a strong pass blocker as Colton Miller, obviously. And so Arden Key, for all the things you could say, he was a former Raider, has still got the twitchiness, has still got speed around the edge. He's always been a lighter guy, not a power rusher, but can really threaten. Huh?
Did you play with Arden Key?
No, he did draft him the year after I believe I left, or a year or 2 years after I left. But yeah, watching him from afar, he's still a speedy guy, and so Stone has a lot to prove, and that's part of the equation of Geno's comfort on dropbacks is, does he have the similar feeling of protection from his blind side? So I'm looking for that matchup in the trenches.
Yeah, that's a good one. And Key's made a pretty good career for himself.
Those pass
kind of
rush, they become mercenaries nowadays, but I mean, you can continue to get however many millions and just sign 1-year deals. Jadeveon Clowney's a prime example of that. Yeah, absolutely. He's made a good career for himself.
Yeah. So yeah, that's definitely something to watch out for on Geno's blind side. For me, I think Darian Porter should start in place of Caillou Blue. I mean, we've seen enough from Caillou Blue to kind of know what he is, and I think Darian Porter has played well enough to where Eric Stokes is expected to be back this week. Um, I think he should play on the opposite side and just develop him and see what you have in him. And if he does play, he'll get tested by Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley is an exceptional route runner. Um, he can't catch the ball. This is his problem. He just has so many drops. Like his target conversion rate is pretty atrocious this season. But he did catch the ball against the Cardinals, and he had one of his best games of the season. I think his first 100-yard game of the season. So he's a receiver that you definitely have to be worry about. And if Porter's starting or if Caillou Blue is starting, that's where they're gonna really test him. So um, you got to be able to match up with him. He's extremely quick and nifty, and you just have to be able to be disciplined and not get burned deep by Ridley. So that's the matchup I'd be watching out for.
Nice. I like that.
All right, who's your X factor?
X factor, I think, is again, it's so paramount to the success on the defense is finding someone other than Max Crosby who can get consistent pressure. And Malcolm Kuntz, I understand they're dropping all their ends into coverage way more than I want. I don't love that, but specifically Max Crosby. But when Kuntz has opportunities one on one against Dan Moore, he's got to find a way to get home. And not in home. Getting home is not a sack. Getting home is having the quarterback feel your presence, have to move his spot in the pocket, and ultimately you touch him and you ruffle him, you hurry him, quarterback hit, all that stuff. Everything short of the sack still has impact, especially knowing that they're throwing 1, 2, or 3 guys at Max Crosby every play. I'm going to continue to wait for somebody else to emerge just because the defense can really, the whole point of playing the covers that they play is that with a pass rush, guys have chances to make plays. But if the quarterback has forever to sit in the pocket, even the Daniel Jones of the world are going to carve you up. So I imagine Cam Moore is on that trajectory. So he's just such a crucial, him or just another presence, but him specifically, such a crucial piece to this pass rush.
Yeah, what do you think? How do you get Dan Moore when you watch him? How do you think Kuntz can potentially create an advantage, or like what moves can he go to against Dan Moore?
Dan Moore's he's a big guy. Listen, they signed him to free agency. I think they might have overpaid a little bit. He's a good player, has a lot of experience, a lot of reps. But to me, uh, using speed to inside move, speed to power is really going to upset him a little bit. He is a powerful guy, but you got to speed him up and then mess with his balance at the top of the drop or whenever he gets to a spot. And so Malcolm Kuntz has enough speed to do that. Does he have the move repertoire to do that over and over or set Dan Moore up as the game goes on? I mean, the best pass rushers always been against. You knew that what you saw in the first quarter, it might have seemed vanilla or it might have seemed that you've seen on film, but they were thinking as a chess game. They're thinking moves and steps ahead. So do you have a plan for Dan Moore that includes letting him with speed, making sure he feels you early, and so that when his kick starts getting a little bit elongated, a little bit more explosive out of the stance, then you dip underneath, you spin, you power rush him off of the speed. So I think those are ways that he could be had.
That's a good call. And when Kuntz was healthy and at his best, he had a pretty good long arm for a guy that's smaller. Just because, like you mentioned, he was able to speed those tackles up and then stab them inside. So we'll see. Well, maybe they get if Kuntz gets a sack on a long arm, we'll shout you out. That's a good call. Um, my matchup to watch, my X factor, I'll say Jack Besh because I don't think. I doubt Brock Bowers plays this game. I feel like they probably should rest him until the bye week. And if he's out again, then Besh will be playing inside, next to Michael Mayer, like he did in this game. And if he just gets a little bit better at blocking and getting to those second level defenders, that's gonna pop Ashton Genty on some of those longer runs. So I think he will get a little bit better. I think the game was moving a little fast for him, but he has the physicality to do that. And when they do play those two deep coverages, Besh underneath, can be can be a factor in the passing game. So I'll use him as my X factor, and he'll probably this will probably be his highest usage game of the season. They've been kind of ramping him up, and I think he should be fully onboarded by this point.
Yeah, it's got to be. You've got to throw him out there, see what he can handle, and then allow him to also just be a football player. Like there are sometimes with guys, especially when they're young, you want to just have a play design that where all he knows is like I have one thing to do. If the corner does this, I do this. If the safety does this, I do this. But I have less to think about. I can go be an athlete, and that gets me involved in the game. Obviously, there's more thinking after that, more reaction after that. But getting him involved in the game early, both run and pass, I think would be a big deal.
All right, let's get into predictions. What is your prediction for this game?
I was shocked to see the line Raiders at almost 6, and I think that holds. I think they're at home. This is a moment where there's true urgency throughout the building. Hopefully you're galvanized. Everyone's calling for your quarterback's job. Obviously, you've got injuries. Your back is against the wall. So I think a lot of guys, you see what they're really about when their backs are against the wall. And this feels like a moment against the team that you're supposed to beat still, which is rare for the Raiders these days, but you're supposed to beat this team. I have the Raiders winning 24-14. I think they bottle Cam Ward up. This Tennessee team will give you a lead. That will give you opportunities early in the game. You just got to make sure they don't turn the Jets on in the fourth quarter. You allow them to rally like last week. So I have the Raiders winning.
Nice. I almost have the exact same score as you. I have 27-17. I think the Raiders win. Big game for Ashton Genty. I think Cam Ward will probably give you a couple turnovers. But yeah, like you mentioned, if you get a lead and you stay on it, you stay focused, you should be able to win this game by a convincing fashion. And the Raiders really need a convincing win. Like they don't need a win where they're just barely beating the Tennessee Titans. A
Yeah,
loss would be devastating, obviously, but they need just for morale and to get some of the vibes turned around to win this game by double digits, in my opinion.
I agree. It's got to be a vibe shift as on the line for sure. So they're playing at home. Get the home crowd into it. Get the Raider Nation going, and hopefully they show up and perform.
All right. That's all we have for you guys today. Marshall Newhouse, the people are loving what you are putting out on these pods. Every comment has been positive, and yeah, they're just thankful for the insights. So thank you again for joining us, and we will talk.
And
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, I'm not bad. I appreciate the fans. It's been fun getting back into watching one of my old teams. And I hope there are brighter days ahead. I know the fans are as loyal as they come, and I'm wishing for the best for the Raiders.
Awesome. All right, and we will talk to you guys after the game. Hopefully, the Raiders win. But yeah, thank you for joining us. Make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment on YouTube, leave a review, rate on Apple and Spotify, and we will talk to you guys on Sunday.